to the end.
Demons to some, angels to others.
They're all dead. They're all dead.
You don't know what death is.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's bshowbrian. I'm back. I promised. I said I'd be back. I know in the past I have not come back so quickly, and I wanted to make sure we did this right. This is the B Show podcast. I don't know if I'm going to keep the name, but for now, it's the B Show podcast. It's been that way for a long time. I've toyed with some other names, but I'm bshowbrian, and this is my podcast. So why the hell would I change it now? But thank you for joining me. This week, we're going to talk about this is kind of a more of the night he came home type of episode. So for a horror movie podcast, this is pretty on point. This is related to the show last week. We got to see the Jason Universe logo reveal with the Friday the 13th hockey mask. We're going to be talking about the full shebang, the whole damn enchiladas. We're going to be talking about Jason's look. All right. I didn't intend to do this. I wanted to do something fun. I don't want to keep like cracking on stuff or ragging on stuff because I loved the franchise. I love these movies. I really do. I don't know if you can see the mask saying behind me. Like, I love these movies. I got the poster on the wall. I think that's the second week I've done an inadvertent Rodney Dangerfield. I don't know what's going on with me. But what's going on with you? Thank you for joining me. Thank you for coming back. If you're not watching on video, you can check out the video episodes of this podcast. If you want to see me and the pictures and videos we're going to be looking at in the future, we're going to be doing some fun stuff, lists, countdowns, some things that are graphically oriented, like reimagining different types of movies with different casts in a different flavor, based on some internet memes. And I don't want to say any more than that because I don't want to sell it and have it undersold. But I wanted to do something this week. Really, like I'm not going to ruin it. All right. I'll save it for another week. Maybe not next week, but in another week or two, I'll do something more visual, more fun. If you want to check that out, YouTube, just go to bshowbrian.com or bshowpodcast.com. It'll take you right to the website. Jesus, it'll take you right to the YouTube channel. It's late. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much. Subscribe. If you want to listen to this on the go, if you want to put big old B Show in your pocket, hard to fit me in there. I'm a big guy. You can't tell here looking at me sitting down, but yeah, you want to put me in your pocket and take me bite size, shrink me down like the fucking Shrinking Man or the Fly at the end of the 50s version. Just anywhere you find podcasts, you can listen to me. Make sure you subscribe though, and leave me a review because that does help. Now, all that horse shit out of the way. That's taken way too much time. Last week we talked about the Jason Universe, the logo reveal, the mask reveal. I was not thrilled, and then we talked about it more on Spitball Media. And as we were talking about it, planning for the show and discussing things we were going to talk about, Wednesday or Thursday of last week, the Jason Universe also unveiled their look for Jason. And I'm going to jump over here. Share this with you right now. So if you're on YouTube watching, you're going to see it on your screen. If not, I'm sure you can Google Jason Universe, Jason First Looks. And what you see is what to me looks like a concept sketch. There we go. I'm just going to cover myself up for a minute and zoom in. But it looks like a concept sketch with the mask that we saw. I wish I had a match. I'd like this on fire. But with the mask that we saw before, it looks a little bit better on Jason, I will say. I was not a huge fan. I am going to find for reference what I told John and Shaheen on Spitball Media Thursday night, what it looked like. But to me, it reminds me of like Moltar from Space. I am Space Ghost. My guest today is Jason Voorhees. Like, for some reason, to me, it reminds me of that. Just this big giant mask. I will get you, Space Ghost. Been talking a lot today, so my voice is fried. All right, let me get this back into proper proportions here. But no, also it reminded me of this. I'm gonna share my. Oh, there you guys can already see it. I'm gonna get rid of that. All right. Brutus Beefcake, when he came back to the WWF in 1993, he'd had his face destroyed by a parasailing accident. And I don't know why this reminds me of Jason. I think it's just. All right, here we go. I'm going to enlarge this and pay for that later. That's what she said. So if you look at the big, wide open eyes and like the unibrow looking thing, like the yeah, I don't know. I know I'm probably alone in thinking that, but the Jason mask, I've been vocal. I said it's not terrible. It's not amazing. I'm not a huge fan, right? So, all right, we're going to talk about the mask now. We're going to talk about the look, I should say. So here we have Jason. Now, the press release that came out from Jason Inc. Got to recenter that again. So the press release that came out from Jason Inc. was interesting because they said, I'm going to toggle back over for a minute. They said that their effects team had worked on this design, that they did it in conjunction with Greg Nicotero, right? That's what I saw on Twitter. Greg Nicotero helped design this mask. And if you don't know Greg Nicotero, then you must be new to the world of horror because Greg Nicotero, part of the famed KNB Effects group, who worked on he worked on Day of the Dead. He was one of the showrunners almost for The Walking Dead. I think he might have taken over for Kirkman if he left at some point. But he did the effects for those. He worked on, I believe, Savini's Night of the Living Dead. Greg Nicotero's been around a long time. He designed the Halloween 5 Michael Myers mask, which, Now I can kind of believe that he had a hand in designing this. I'm joking. Greg Nicotero is like a god. It was like Savini, Nicotero, John Carl Buechler, Rob Bottin. That's, to me, the Mount Rushmore for me. And I'm probably forgetting some, but those guys are just who's who of practical makeup effects. And he was touted as helping design this, right? To go back, if you're watching on YouTube, and it's pretty simple. And we talked about this on Spitball Media, but I didn't really get too deep into it because for those of you who don't know, I podcast with my buddies John and Shaheen, and when there's three of you, you're throwing stuff around, spitballing, no pun intended, but when you're spitballing ideas, it's hard to go long form and kind of absorb and lay out how you feel about this stuff, right? And I always figured I got my own way of doing that here, and I can take time and really look at it, pick it apart, say what I like, what I don't like. And I'm going to start with the positives, all right? I like the utilitarian look. I like that it looks basic. I like that it looks like clothes that someone would wear in the outdoors, right? It reminds me of part 3, the Richard Brooker Jason with the green overshirt that he finds from Harold and whatever her name's clothesline, right? So to me, yes, it harkens back to that. And my reaction to this is going to be more to how it was rolled out than the actual look. So I'll talk about the look first and then what I thought about the rollout. But here you have like a khaki colored undershirt. You've got a khaki earth tone, hunter green, maybe overshirt, similar to, like I said, Harold's shirt from Friday the 13th, part 3 in 3D. Basic brown or green slacks and brown work boots. I mean, it looks it looks benignly fitting for Jason, especially going back to the early days before he got the makeovers, before Kane Hodder played him, before he was in space, before he even had like the half of his skull hanging out and the ribs and stuff. As cool as that stuff is, before he was a zombie Jason, he was just Jason. And this works because this is a creepy dude you would see in the middle of the woods. I have no problem with this. I really don't. I don't have a problem with the look of it. I do think they drew the dude a little too small. This looks like vegan Jason. Looks like Whole Foods Jason. Like he's going to get some quinoa. He's going to roast some quinoa over the fire and then stab you with a a real oak skewer that was whittled from the woods of the Oregonian coast. So it's fine. Hopefully they'll find someone who's a little bit bigger playing Jason. I'm not a fan of like the bodybuilder style, but I like hunchback Jason. I like, I don't want to say the word. I like weird looking, deformed Quasimodo, hulking, like uh, Canadian strength Jason. You know what I mean. I don't want to say that. But like I like that. I like the big, slow, hulking Quasimodo lumbering around in the woods. Not quite like Frankenstein, just kind of like ugh. But like he's limited in his social ability, but his utility and his use of tools and his cunning, like he has a survival intelligence. Like I like that Jason. I don't like him to be just dumb. I don't like him to be lumbering around like they had him, Freddy versus Jason. I like the reboot Jason, right? And this reminded me of the reboot Jason because that's one thing I wanted to get to too. For those of you who are fans of the franchise, I don't have an issue with the way his costume looks. I have issues with the mask, but I'll get over it because if you get the right Jason with the right makeup effects behind it, with like the lumpy head and the weird single hairs hanging out, like the Feldman look, I don't care what the clothes really look like as long as it doesn't look starkly out of place. Like the original Halloween was very simple, right? That was the whole idea. They didn't really have a costume in mind. They wanted a stark white face, a motionless human face, and with no features, just blank, with dark eyes. And then they just wanted a jumpsuit, something dark to fall off the screen. All you see is the mask. So with Jason, it doesn't have to be anything over the top, right? But here's my issue with this, and it goes back to what I talked about last week. And if some of you listen to my what if about how to launch the next chapter in the Friday the 13th franchise, if you're disappointed by that I kind of went comedic with it, and I was talking about commercialization, and I was talking about using that as a launching pad in a way, and I was joking, I was having some fun with it. But this is why. This is where it all came from. This is where it was coming from. And I really wish we would have seen this last week. Okay. They announced this big rollout. They announced the logo, they announced the mask, which I thought both of them looked very generic. Then they announced the first looks for Jason. And they're talking about this rebirth and this whole new look. And it was developed by Greg Nicotero and blah, blah, blah. But then you read into the article and it says Greg Nicotero consulted. He was consulted. Okay. So he didn't create it. That was the headline. He didn't create it. Okay. Okay. That's like saying John Carpenter consulted on the Halloween sequel trilogy. They asked him for feedback. He probably gave notes. And then after the first one, they told him to fuck off and collect his check. And that's evident by the second two movies and things he said about the franchise over the years. So respect, make your bank, make your paper boo-boo, as the great Cat Williams once said, but I digress. So a little bit misleading. Greg Nicotero didn't design it. They consulted. Okay. Felt like I was splitting hairs there. But then they're kind of explaining like this was a fresh start and a new concept, and they came up with this, right? But I mentioned the Friday the 13th reboot a minute ago, and how I was a big fan of that one, how they handled Jason, how he looked. And I started thinking, that looks just like Jason from the reboot. In fact, this mask looks better. This mask looks better. It's beat up. It's grody. It's great. So to me, last week when I mentioned my issues potentially with the rollout of this franchise, how I felt like they were going to Blumhouse it, how you were going to see, Jason, because they're talking about this. I usually don't listen to other creators before I record. However, I don't like to poison what could potentially be my opinions, and I don't want to fall into the trap of copying other people. But my opinion of this And sometimes when you don't get feedback, or sometimes when for me personally, when I do these things and I share these opinions, and I don't see a lot of other people saying specific things, sometimes I tend to think that, well, maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe I'm going over the top. Maybe I'm being a nitpicky fan. However, I did see Mike, I believe his name is, from We Watched a Movie. I like his channel a lot. I don't remember his partner's name, but they do really, really good reviews and lives and stuff like that. And I'm a fan, and I saw this come up when I was putting laundry away, and I didn't feel like stopping it, so I listened. I will say some of the points I'm going to make, he echoed, and I'm glad to hear somebody else saying it, and someone very vocal too, as those guys are. Big fans. But my feeling last week is starting to materialize, I think. Jason Inc. is so focused on Funko Pops, Fortnite skins, action figures. It's the fucking Spaceballs joke, right? This whole launch, this Jason universe so far, it's a combination, and I know it's early, we don't know plot details, we're not going to, but so far it feels like a mix between Wayne's World 2 and Spaceballs, right? Because like right now they're like, oh, we're gonna launch this multimedia campaign. And look what we did. We've completely designed a new Jason. Ignore this other one. Like honestly, look at these two. That's Jason. That's Jason. It's the exact same thing. If I was the guy that designed Jason for the last movie, I might say, hey, I kind of did that last time. And maybe I wouldn't be too upset if I was that guy, because here, I'm going to show you this. I didn't pull this one up, and I should have. Let me pull it up real quick. Sorry to do this, guys. FVJ. If you look at another film in the franchise, gee golly whiz. That looks familiar. Now I'm having issues with my graphics on my computer. See what happens when I call it audible, folks. All right. So from Freddy versus Jason. Same concept. It's more of a jacket, like a Carhartt, and I thought this design looked really cumbersome. I think they did it to cover up Ken Krinzinger, make it, Ronnie Yu was really obsessed with having Jason look like Frankenstein, so that's probably beefing him up and stuff like that. But it's no different than that, right? And so that, to my point here, is they're selling us on all the sizzle. They're going, we're going to have Funko Pops. We're going to have video games. Meanwhile, they had one and it doesn't work. Oh, by the way, they just happened to Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and friends of mine are pissed. We're going to have these vinyl collectibles and board games and t-shirts and new masks and blah, blah. And that's great. That's great. That's awesome. We're fans. But that's all a whole bunch of shit that, like, I've already got memorabilia. I buy stuff when I can. I've got kids, man. I've got kids. I've got a mortgage, a car payment. I don't have thousands of dollars to spend on disposable fucking memorabilia. I'll buy stuff when I can. I'll make stuff when I can. But it's Spaceballs the t-shirt, Spaceballs the video game, Spaceballs the action figure, Jason the flamethrower, Jason the lunchbox. You know what I mean? And I said this last week. I don't like to repeat. I said this is going to be more of the night he came home, unintentionally, because of the new news we saw. But like, this is what is starting to roll out. All the messaging we're seeing from Jason Inc. so far is it's going to be multimedia. We're going to have all this stuff. You're going to buy this stuff. You're going to do this. And it's like, dude, again, not to copy Mike from we watched a movie, but we have this shit. We have tons of stuff. There's tons of stuff I would love. Tons of NECA figures that I want to catch up on, and I can't afford. Because I just can't afford to spend 30, 40 bucks an action figure all the fucking time. You know what I mean? There's people out there that'll do that. But that's like the Spaceballs aspect. It's all commercial. That's what this is about. And I understand to an extent where Jason Inc., just to do these projects, has to do a deal with what's his name? Victor Miller. Victor Miller? Was that the screenwriter? It's got to be a joint venture. So I'm sure that adds overhead to the overhead expenses, right? To the project. So they have to charge more. They have to make their money. But like at this point, you're almost trying to set the table of making the money and setting up all the merchandising before you've even like sold or delivered a product. Like at this point, honestly, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to degrade anyone's work, especially after kind of shitting on the mask last week. That looks like AI. Someone could come up with that on AI. And here, I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to go to bing.com, the image creator, Jason Voorhees, summer camp pencil sketch. All right, here we go. I'm going to let this bitch work in the background. All right, and then we're going to pull it up. But if it doesn't throw me a copyright issue. But it's like, to me, it feels like they're throwing nothing out and this is amazing. This is great. This is amazing. Right? And yeah, here we go. It's not the greatest, but yeah, like that's not all that different. This actually looks like part 6. All right. And I guess I could hit recreate and see what comes up, but like, I feel like they're trying to sell us all this shit. Or they're setting the table, as I mentioned before. I'm getting distracted by the tech, but they're more focused on that than giving us anything in terms of substance. So, and this is going to be basic, but that's my point, is this first look Jason, it's fine. But that's not what matters right now. Like, I know they're trying to get people excited and teased about this. But like, we don't know details. And I don't need to know every detail of the plot. I don't need to see every trailer. That ruined my experience going into Halloween 2018 because I was excited. I watched the trailers and I felt like I watched the whole movie on YouTube before it even came out, right? But like, I could give a shit less about Funko Pops and about all that other shit, video games. Just give me a good movie, right? Like, as a wrestling fan, and this ties in, right now they're going through something. I feel like every hobby is getting squeezed by the companies that own them. Wrestling, people were talking about WrestleMania ticket prices being $20 or $30 or $40,000 for a ticket package. That's insane. That's insane. Meet and greet packages were $200 to $500 a piece for who? For who? And they're like, oh, look at this nice stage, and we're in Vegas, and we'll do this stand-up comedy show. And it's like, you had like one night of good matches. It's 2 nights, one night of good matches where the main event shit the bed. And then the other night where like all the matches were terrible except for the main event. So like, you're not even delivering. Like, you're charging people a college education. You're charging people a used car. Some new cars. And what are you giving them? Nothing. And that's my fear for this. My fear is that because of the nature of the project, because of the way they're rolling this out, because of what they're choosing to focus on, and they're trying to gaslight us. And that's what it is corporate gaslighting. They're trying to gaslight us and get us excited about the project and show us things that really aren't all that impressive. Look how great it is. This is the greatest thing ever. So that we're going to roll out the wallets and whip out the cash card. I'm getting fucking old. Whip out the debit cards or the credit cards and buy all this shit up. And they haven't even given us any details yet. None. Linda Cardellini's going to be Pamela Voorhees, right? We haven't seen any concept art. We haven't heard any rumors about plot. We haven't, other than they're going to Blairstown, right? It's member berries and it's concept art, and bad concept art at that. Like, I'm really getting upset at stuff like this, whether it's, like I said, wrestling or music, right? We're going to give you all these acts on this big festival and we're going to charge a shitload of money. And it's like, okay, well, what if I just want to go to one show at an arena and see a band? And it's like, it's $300 for riser seats. And I think here's the thing too. The thing that pisses me off, I guess, about it the most, as I mentioned, they're trying to gaslight you and make you think this shit's amazing, right? And it's basic bitch shit so far. They're doing this to the people who have supported the franchises all along, right? Because they know this, and I've said this for a long time about wrestling, right? And I don't mean, and you know what? I'm not apologizing anymore. I'm a longtime wrestling fan. That's going to come out through osmosis in some of these shows. So if you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you. But wrestling has a long, going back to the days of the territories when it was Carney's working Marks, long-standing tradition of abusive relationship. They see the fans as marks. They see them as an ATM. They see the fans as cash. That's it. And sure, there's some appreciation, but especially with this current generation of wrestlers, there's a lot of people that not just see them as marks and as an easy way to get money, but also they want nonstop adulation. And if you tell them they're great and you tell them they're the greatest and you suck up to them, or if you're a simpy dude who gives tons of money to a hot chick in wrestling because you're a fan of theirs, right? The second you go critical or you say something, then it's like, oh, you're terrible, you're this, you're that, you're not a real fan, right? And then they gaslight you in trying to get you back into that relationship, and then they give you just enough. Like wrestling was on its ass 3 or 4 years ago. And then they started getting some exciting shit going. And as soon as people got interested again, they went right back to basic ass shit. That Monday night show on Netflix is unwatchable. If I watch anything, it's like 1 or 2 matches. I fast forward, and I usually, even the big shows every month, I'll fast forward through most of that. The shows are unwatchable. They're making more money than God because of their positioning and ticket prices and all that stuff. But they're fleecing their most loyal customers. And wrestling fans traditionally don't have a whole lot of money. Just going to put that out there. I don't want to see the same thing happen to horror movies with these big franchises. I don't want to see the same thing happen where it's happening in other places, other hobbies, other fandoms. And I know cinema's getting tighter. And I know this week on Spitball Media, we're going to talk about a Kevin Smith quote that Jamie Pennycook, a good friend of mine, sent me this week, where Kevin Smith is talking about cinema going away and how it's not affordable for cinemas, and they're trying other shit, and the Alamo Drafthouse model is what's taking over, and that's not going to last. I understand it's harder to make a buck, but look at Terrifier, right? If you're worried about making a buck with a Friday the 13th movie, I talked a lot of shit last week about like basically the Eat the Rich Jason movie, and I'm not a fucking socialist and shit. I'm like a left of center conservative in some ways, right? Fiscally conservative, socially, liberal in a way. That's kind of I kind of ride the fence. So yes, I was joking about that, but reflective of times we live in right now. But if you want to make money with a Jason movie, it's unspoken. Teenagers in the woods slaughtered by Jason. That's it. That's all you need. Rent the Camp Nobi Bosco in Blairstown. Take someone with some good makeup effects talent. Come up with some creative kills. Maybe call back to some other ones. Put them in the woods in the late summer, early fall, whatever the case. And just tell that story. Find a way, a new way, a fresh way, a spin to tell that story. I was joking with the whole Great Outdoors summer rental thing and the commercialization deal because it was on my mind, because this is my instinct. This is what my gut is telling me based on what we're seeing from the Jason Inc. part of this franchise. And it's sad because we haven't seen a Jason movie in almost 2 decades? And to me, there hasn't been a great Friday the 13th project since probably part 7 in 1987. And at that point, it was running kind of thin, right? The heyday of the slasher had gone. Freddy came and blew him out of the water with his Johnny Carson shtick. Like it was over for Jason, and it was a nice swan song. Rest in peace, Lar Park Lincoln, by the way. She passed away last week. So to me, like just make a movie. Make it good. I don't care if it's basic. if you're worried about Hollywood budgets being inflated and $200,000 and $300,000 and how are we going to make that back? I'm not saying it would be good, right? But I could take, you give me $1 million, I could take some friends I know, some makeup effects artists, some people who can write, some people who can work cameras and lighting, and come up with some really cool shit on the fly. I could go and rent a campground for 2 weeks, and we could bang out a halfway decent Friday the 13th film. I guarantee it. And that's not hubris from someone who thinks he can do it. I'm saying the formula is so simple at this point and tried and true. And the hook is baited, and people want it. They want it. Stop trying to out fancy everybody. Stop trying to out commercialize everybody. If you make the movie people want, they will come and see it. If you build it, they will come. And you will make money. Because the field is fertile. The fruit is ripe for the picking. That's all you need. You don't need the shit I was joking about last week. You don't need that. I'm having fun. Stop overcomplicating it. They're horror movies. The whole elevated shit. Like, I know it's A24, but like, you don't need that. It's going to overcomplicate things. It's a lumbering maniac with limited intellect and survival skills and instinct taught to him by his time at the camp, hunting down teenagers in the woods who aren't paying attention because they're too busy trying to get and get high. And he's doing it in the spirit of vengeance because they killed his mom and he doesn't know any better. It is a tragedy. It is a fucking tragedy. And the state of this franchise is a fucking tragedy. Because it's been, 18, 19 years. They couldn't get their shit together. Legal battles. And like this is an omen. The legal battles. The cash-ins with the Freddy versus Jason and trying to take over, selling to New Line and trying to do the movie back in the 80s and 90s. And that shit not happening. Like, to me, as far as I'm concerned, if this project comes out and it bombs, this might be it for me. I'm pushing 40, man. I'm pushing 40. I love these movies from back in the day. They hit me in a special place. And my special purpose. So instead of doing the Steve Martin the jerk thing, speaking of special purpose, you've won a free oven mitt. Like, I don't... oven mitt? What the fuck is that? Right? It's like when I was a kid, I'll give you two analogies and then I'll dip. One is more juvenile. One is, literally juvenile. When I was in grade school, a friend of mine won a candy contest, right? And the person who sold the most candy got like a 9-pound chocolate bar. And it was like, holy shit, 9 pounds of the world's finest, brand chocolate. It was good. He smashed that fucker. And, sugar coma, and then came in Monday morning and told us how awesome it was, right? Well, the next year, another candy company came in, and the salesperson, I felt bad for him, and I was a kid, and I recognized this. She comes out and says, the winner's going to get this amazing thing. It's the greatest thing ever. A 3-pound chocolate bar. And everyone just kind of was like, because the year before, our buddy won a 9-pound chocolate bar. Now, 3 pounds of chocolate to like a 5th grader is still 3 pounds of chocolate, for God's sakes. But we just had 9. Right? And it feels like that, like they're trying to pass off something lesser as this great, amazing thing. It's great, but like we have the good shit. And that's how I feel, man. Like Jason from the 1980s, to me, that's the 9-pound chocolate bar. That 1980 through 87 run. To me, that's the shit. I don't need the new stuff. So if it's not going to be good, don't jerk me off trying to tell me it's going to be this amazing stuff because you've got Funko Pops and he's in Dead by Daylight and Jason's going to make a cameo on Saturday Night Live. And by God, if Jason shows up on AEW wrestling, Anyway. But yeah, or like if you've been in a bad relationship before. No, let me take that back. If you've been in a great relationship before and you're with a partner who does some shit, right? They just whatever you like or whatever they do that hooks you, they do it and they do it well. And then you break up and you get with somebody else and they're like, "Oh, isn't this amazing?" And it's like it's kind of mid. Or, even how about this? Even worse. If you have that girl, like there's just guys that go through this and girls that go through this. If you have a partner that scratches that itch or tickles that fancy or does whatever early in the relationship, and then you get married and you have kids and whatever, and now that shit don't happen. It's like, what the fuck? Like, what happened to that? Right? That's what I'm saying. That's what this feels like. And they're walking a tightrope. They're always going to make money. There's always going to be people that go out and watch these movies, right? It happened in 2000, was it 9 when they did 2009? Am I talking with the Chicago accent again? R.I.P. George Wendt. I want to say something about that in a minute. I don't want to forget. But basically, to end this rant, and I apologize for part 2, even though it's kind of in the tradition of horror movies, I feel like, to me, I've already got the good shit. I don't need the imitation. So if this stuff's not good or I'm not going to get good vibes from this project coming out, I'm going to watch it because obviously we do podcasts and we talk about that stuff. And it's fucking Jason. But I'm sick of like mediocrity being passed off as this great, amazing thing. The AI level drawing, if someone hand drew that and thought that was great, fine. But like the company did you dirty by like touting it as this brand new, fresh looking thing because it's the same shit we've seen for the past 2 installments. Thank you for like harkening back to part 3 with like the olive green shirt and stuff and keeping it low key. That's fine. I'm not knocking whoever actually did the photo. I'm saying they're passing off like a generic sketch as like the second coming. It's like they found the Shroud of fucking Turin or something like that with Jesus's blood like mashed into it. That's my thing. Is it's the corporate, the marketing machine behind it. It's, to me, I'm not getting good vibes, and there's a lot of people I know not getting good vibes either. So if you want to hear more, and we watched the movie, go check out their channel. If you want to hear us talk about certain stuff like this on Spitball Media, check us out Thursday nights, 8:30 Eastern live, or the download afterward on the podcast. But yeah, man, I don't know. Let me know what you think. If you're watching the video, if you're on, listen to the podcast, wherever you listen, drop a comment and let me know. Are you really excited as a fan? If you are, first of all, if you're a fan of the franchise, a longtime fan, does this excite you at all? Like, does this do anything for you? Or are you just kind of waiting for us to get the real shit, right? Or if you're a new person, like I know my buddy John JLD, shout out to young John. He was not a fan of the classic slashers, and he's excited about this and wants to hear more about why we love this stuff. But like people like you, younger cats who weren't around for some of this stuff back in the 90s or didn't get it as hand-me-downs from your cousins and your brothers from the 80s. If you weren't around when it was the biggest thing in the world, what does this do for you? What does this do anything for you? If you've watched the old movies, even if you're not an old school fan, does this make a difference or not? And honestly, I do feel bad for the younger generation because this is all they've known. All they know is everything has a price tag attached to it. And this is not a down with capitalist rant. Again, this is not a socialist rant, communist rant. This is just the current state of entertainment. Video games with my kid. Every time he plays a video game, even if we buy one, he'll be like, "Dad, can I get this upgrade?" It's like, no, it's like another $25. Oh man, but I really want the this and I want the that. Right? It's frustrating that it's like everyone is trying to fuck you for money at every turn. Right? And other people have talked to death about this. I'm not going to go on and on about it, but like from internet companies to TV companies to cable companies to streaming, like there's no reason why with Netflix, I have to pay for Netflix, but my kid can't watch the Minecraft movie because I don't have the highest package. And then now streaming is like cable, so we have 5 or 6 different services anyway. We're paying as much as we did for cable in the first place. Oh, and by the way, they'll take your movies back if you buy them on digital. Right? And I did see an article, we may talk about this Thursday, where Blu-ray and DVD sales are increasing right now because people are saying F off to the streaming companies. Good. Good. They say capitalism is fair and it's competition. Well, good. Because guess what? You streaming providers, you tried to fuck everybody, and now people are buying physical again. So, congratulations, you did it yourself. One thing I did want to finish on before I leave, and I went a little later than I did last week. I want to try to keep these to about 30 minutes, but George Wendt, for those of you who do not know, I was born in 87. My parents watched a lot of late night TV because my dad would get home from work late. We'd eat dinner and just kind of hang with him in front of the TV and talk about our day. But George Wendt was a popular character. He played popular actor who played a character named Norm on the immensely popular TV shows called Cheers. You can check it out, I believe, on Paramount Plus. Interestingly enough, we're talking about an old Paramount franchise tonight. But George Wendt, you've known him, you've probably seen him, recognized him. Cheers, he was the guy at the end of the bar. He'd walk in and always have some funny quip for the guys at the bar. Just a funny comedic guy. Did a lot of guest spots on Saturday Night Live. I mentioned the Chicago thing. Da Bears. He was in that sketch. And one thing a lot of people don't know is that George Wendt also co-starred in the 1984 or 5 movie House. And we're talking about Jason Voorhees. That movie was directed by Sean Cunningham, scored by Harry Manfredini, who Sean Cunningham directed the first Friday the 13th, produced much of the rest, and is involved, I believe, with Jason Inc. to this day, and his son as well. And Harry Manfredini did the score for most of the best original, Friday the 13th, part 1 through 5, I believe. George Wendt co-starred in the movie House, which was incredibly successful. It is not talked about. I did a video on this channel if you want to go check it out. It's kind of primitive. I was messing with a teleprompter that really wasn't working, so my delivery's pretty slow. But I might talk about some unsung, movies and franchises that got lost to the sand of time, because this movie that George Wendt co-starred in, House, it was made for like 3 or 4 million, and it made like 30 or 40. So when you compare that to the Friday the 13th movies of the day, it's in the same ballpark as far as profitability. And no one talks about this movie. So, George Wendt passed away today. It is May 20th, 2025 when I record this. I have a fond place in my heart for George Wendt. Seemed like a nice guy. People who met him said he was a nice guy. Very, very interesting character on the show Cheers that I remember my parents watching when I was a kid. It went off the air in 1993, and in an ironic twist of fate, George Wendt passed away on the 32nd anniversary of the airing of the final episode of Cheers. So, age 76, George Wendt. Norm, rest in peace. My name is bshowbrian. Thank you for checking this out. Thank you for hanging with me. I will be back next week with another episode. Not sure what I'm going to talk about, because if something comes up in the news that I'm going to talk about, then I'm going to do that. If not, I want to have some fun and do some more lighthearted fare. But I'm bshowbrian. Thanks for checking me out. Be sure to subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you're on YouTube. Leave me a review if you're either on YouTube or I guess on podcasts. I'm starting to cross my streams here. And I will see you next week.